The shuttle cut through the pale clouds of Veilthera like a slow, careful thought. Its silver body reflected the soft blue light of the planet below, a world shaped by wide seas, heavy gravity, and an ancient species that had learned to survive by never showing weakness. Inside the shuttle, Eli Mercer sat very still, hands folded, breathing in a way he had practiced for years. He was a linguist, not a soldier. His weapon was patience. His shield was listening. Eli had trained for first contact since he was 20. He had memorized alien phonemes, studied body language across species, and learned how meaning could change with posture, silence, or tone. None of that training had fully prepared him for what it felt like to land on a planet where every eye that looked at him saw prey first, partner second. The Crithari waited below. They were tall, broad-shouldered, with skin like polished stone and eyes that reflected light in sharp, animal ways. Their movements were controlled and economical, never wasted. They had once been hunters on open plains, and even now, with cities of crystal and metal rising behind them, that history lived in their bones. The shuttle doors opened. Eli stepped out alone. He wore no armor, no visible weapons, just a simple diplomatic uniform and a small translator disc at his throat. He walked forward at a measured pace, not too slow, not too fast. The ground beneath his boots felt solid, heavy, as if the planet itself was testing him. A group of Crithari officials stood in a wide arc. At their center was Commander Siren. She was taller than the rest, her posture straight, her presence unmistakable. Scars crossed one side of her neck, old and clean. Her eyes fixed on Eli with sharp interest, not hostility but something close to curiosity sharpened by instinct. The silence stretched. Eli stopped at the marked distance and inclined his head slightly. Not a bow, not a challenge, a greeting. "I come on behalf of Earth," he said, his voice steady, "with respect." The translator carried his words into the Crithari language, reshaping sound and rhythm. A low murmur passed through the group. Siren stepped forward. She studied him for a long moment. Too long for comfort. Eli kept his breathing slow and his face open. Humans had learned, through long and painful history, how much damage fear could do when it ruled first contact. At last, Siren spoke. "You are smaller than expected," she said. It was not an insult. It was an observation. Eli allowed a small, polite smile. "We often are." Some of the Crithari tilted their heads. Humor was not common among them, but they recognized honesty when they heard it. The formal greeting proceeded without incident. Titles were exchanged. Gifts were presented. Data crystals changed hands. Eli answered questions about Earth with care, choosing words that showed neither pride nor shame. Humanity, he explained, was old enough to know its mistakes and stubborn enough to keep trying anyway. The reception moved into a vast open hall, its ceiling high enough to lose sight of. Light flowed through transparent panels like water. Crithari attendants stood along the edges, silent and watchful. Eli thought the hardest part was over. He was wrong. As the gathering neared its end, Commander Siren turned fully toward him. Her voice rose just enough to carry across the hall. "You will share my bed tonight, human." The words landed like a dropped object in a quiet room. Every Crithari present froze. Every human observer watching from orbit stopped breathing. Eli's mind went completely blank for half a second. Then training snapped back into place. He did not react. He did not step back. He did not laugh or protest. He held his posture, met Siren's gaze, and searched for meaning beneath the words. Crithari language was blunt by design. It valued clarity over comfort. Still, the translator had rendered the phrase accurately. Or had it? Eli felt a sudden, sharp awareness of how fragile this moment was. A wrong response could insult an entire species. A refusal might be read as cowardice. Acceptance without understanding could be worse. The hall remained silent. Siren watched him closely now, her eyes narrow, her body perfectly still. This was not a joke. This was a test. Eli drew a breath. In my culture, he said carefully, such words carry many meanings. I wish to be sure I understand yours. A ripple passed through the Krathari officials. That was the correct response. Clarification before reaction, restraint before emotion. Siren's expression shifted just slightly, approval perhaps. You understand correctly, she said. It is a declaration. Of what? Eli asked. Trust. The word echoed strangely in the vast space. Siren turned her head slightly, addressing the others as much as him. Among my people, we do not place ourselves in vulnerable positions lightly. To share one's resting place is to accept judgment without defense. Eli's heart slowed. This was not what humans feared it was, not exactly. You believe I am worthy of this trust? He asked. I believe, Siren said, that you are untested. That Eli understood was a challenge. He considered the consequences quickly. Declining would mark humanity as unwilling to engage at the deepest cultural level. Accepting would place him in an unknown ritual with rules he did not fully understand. But first contact was never safe. Progress had always required someone to step forward and hope they were standing on solid ground. Eli nodded once. Then I accept, he said. A collective breath seemed to release through the hall. Siren inclined her head, a formal acknowledgement. The matter was settled. Later, as the reception dissolved and the lights dimmed, Eli was escorted through quiet corridors carved from pale stone. The architecture was practical and beautiful, designed to endure centuries without change. His escort said nothing. Krathari valued silence when words were unnecessary. They stopped before a large door. It opened without sound. Siren's private chamber was not what Eli expected. There were no decorations meant to impress, no signs of luxury. The room was wide and simple, with smooth surfaces and soft light. At its center was a raised platform, broad enough for two, covered in a thick, dark material. This was the bed. Eli understood then that bed was a poor translation. This was not a place of sleep alone, it was a place of exposure. Siren entered behind him. The door closed. You may remove your outer garments, she said. No tools, no devices. Eli complied, setting aside his jacket and communicator. He kept his movements slow and visible. Trust, he reminded himself, was a language too. They sat on opposite sides of the platform, facing forward, not touching. The material beneath them was cool and firm. The light dimmed further. For this cycle, Siren said, we remain awake, we speak only truth, we do not turn away. Eli swallowed. And if one fails, then the judgment is clear. She did not explain further. Time passed. At first neither spoke. The silence was heavy but not hostile. Eli focused on his breathing, on the feel of the room, on staying present. He could sense Siren's attention on him, sharp and constant. At last she spoke. Why does your species seek the stars? Eli did not answer immediately. The easy responses rose first. Curiosity, survival, expansion. He let them pass. Because staying still has never kept us safe, he said finally. We learned that early. Siren considered this. What are you afraid of? She asked. Eli felt the weight of the question. Not as a trap, but as an opening. Losing what we've learned to protect, he said, and forgetting why it matters. The light shifted almost imperceptibly as Veilthura's long night deepened. Siren asked more questions about Earth's wars, its failures, its divisions. Eli answered each one with care, not hiding the truth, not decorating it either. Humanity had broken itself more than once, he admitted. It had stood at the edge of extinction and pulled back through cooperation, stubborn hope, and the refusal to give up on the idea that tomorrow could be better. He did not raise his voice. He did not flinch when the questions cut close. Hours passed. Siren's posture relaxed slightly. The sharp edge of her presence softened, not into weakness, but into something like respect. You do not posture, she said quietly. We learned, Eli replied, that pretending to be stronger than we are often makes us weaker. Another silence followed. This one felt different, lighter. Somewhere far above, human observers watched data feeds and held their breath. No alarms sounded. No emergency signals came. On the bed platform of an alien commander, a human sat awake, honest and unafraid. And for the first time, the Crithari wondered if strength could take more than one form. The long night on Vaelthera did not move like a human night. There was no gentle drift into sleep, no soft quiet meant for rest. The light in Commander Siren's chamber shifted slowly, almost like a breathing thing, brightening and dimming in subtle patterns meant to keep the mind awake. The Crithari believed clarity came only when exhaustion tried to blur the truth. Eli Mercer remained seated on the raised platform, his legs beginning to ache, his back stiff. He did not move. He had learned long ago that discomfort was temporary, but trust, once broken, rarely healed the same way twice. Siren watched him in silence for a long time. Among the Crithari, silence was never empty. It was pressure. It was time given for weakness to appear. Many who entered this ritual broke not because of questions, but because of the waiting between them. Eli did not fill the space with nervous words. He focused on staying present. He kept his breathing even. His eyes stayed forward, never challenging, never avoiding. Finally, Siren spoke again. "You are tired," she said. "Yes," Eli replied. "You do not hide it." "No," he said, "there is no point." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Among my people, admitting fatigue is dangerous." "Among mine," Eli said, "pretending you don't feel it can be worse." That earned him a long look. Not anger, not approval, something measured. Siren shifted her position for the first time since the ritual began. The movement was slow and deliberate. Crithari did nothing without meaning. "You spoke of cooperation," she said. "Explain." Eli considered his words carefully. "Humans are not the strongest, not the fastest, not the longest-lived. We survived because we learned to rely on each other. When one fails, another carries them. When many fail, we change how we live." Siren made a low sound in her throat. "That sounds inefficient." "It is," Eli said honestly. "Until the moment when it is." He told her stories then, simple ones. Early humans sharing food around fires, small groups surviving winters that should have killed them, scientists arguing, failing, and trying again. He did not tell them as legends, but as facts shaped by countless unnamed people. Siren listened without interrupting. "Your species accepts weakness," she said at last. "We accept reality," Eli replied. "Weakness exists whether you name it or not." The chamber grew warmer as the planet's rotation continued. Eli felt sweat at the base of his neck. He ignored it. "Tell me of your fear," Siren said. "Not as a species, as an individual." Eli's first instinct was to deflect. This was deeper than politics, deeper than history. But the rules were clear: speak truth or fail. "I fear," he said slowly, "that I will be misunderstood." Siren tilted her head. "Explain." "I fear," Eli continued, "that my intentions will be judged by actions taken by others long before me. That no matter what I say, someone will only see what they expect to see." There was no immediate response. Siren's gaze softened just a fraction. "That fear is familiar," she said. It was the first personal admission she had made. Time stretched again. Eli noticed small details he had missed before. The faint markings along the walls, not decorative but historical, records of those who had completed the ritual, etched subtly where only those who knew to look would see them. The air carried a clean, mineral scent. Nothing here was accidental. Siren broke the silence once more. "Why did you come?" she asked. "You not your species." Eli did not rush this answer. "Because someone had to, and because I believe listening changes outcomes." "That is not strength," she said. "It is a different kind," Eli replied. Her eyes stayed on him, unblinking. Crithari could hold a gaze far longer than humans. It was meant to unnerve. Eli did not look away. The questions grew sharper after that. Siren asked about betrayal, about lies, about the worst actions humans had taken against their own kind. Eli did not excuse them. He did not soften the truth. He spoke of wars started by fear, of systems built on greed, of harm done in the name of good intentions. And yet, Siren said, you still stand. Yes, Eli said quietly, we always do. She leaned back slightly, her posture no longer rigid. In my culture, she said, endurance is measured by dominance. The one who stands over others is strong. In mine, Eli said, endurance is measured by who stands back up. That answer stayed in the air between them. The light shifted again. Another cycle of time passed. Eli's legs trembled slightly now, muscles protesting. He kept still. He had learned endurance was as much mental as physical. Siren studied him with a new intensity. You do not seek advantage, she said. No, Eli replied, only understanding. You could use this ritual to manipulate, she said. I could, Eli agreed. But then it would fail. She considered that. Explain. Trust that is forced isn't trust, Eli said. It's fear wearing a mask. Siren was silent for a long time after that. When she spoke again, her voice was lower. Many who have shared this platform sought to prove themselves superior. I'm not, Eli said simply. For the first time, Siren made a sound that might have been amusement. It was brief, controlled, but unmistakable. The hours continued to pass. Eli felt exhaustion settling deep into his bones. His thoughts slowed. The effort of staying fully present became harder. He focused on one thing at a time, breathing, posture, awareness. Siren asked fewer questions now. Instead, she observed. At one point, she shifted closer, not touching but enough that Eli could feel the warmth of her presence. His instincts stirred not fear but alertness. He did not move. You trust easily, she said. No, Eli replied. I trust carefully. That answer pleased her. You have not asked me anything, she noted. Eli hesitated. May I? Yes, she said. What do you fear? He asked. The question hung between them. Crithari were not accustomed to being asked such things, especially by outsiders. This ritual was designed for judgment, not equality. Siren did not answer immediately. Finally, she spoke. I fear becoming unnecessary, she said. A leader who no longer protects, a warrior whose strength no longer matters. Eli nodded slowly. That fear is shared by many leaders on Earth. And what do they do with it? She asked. Some harden, Eli said. Some learn new ways to serve. Siren considered that. Service, she repeated. You use that word often. Because power lasts longer when it's shared, Eli said. The light in the chamber began to change more noticeably now. Dawn approached, though on Valethera it came slowly, like a decision made over time. Siren straightened. The night nears its end, she said. Eli felt a quiet relief, but he did not show it. You have not broken, she said. Neither have you, Eli replied. That earned him a sharp look, and then, unexpectedly, a nod. You are different from what we expected, she said. So are you, Eli answered. The chamber brightened further. The ritual was not yet complete, but something had shifted. The tension that once filled the space had transformed into something steadier, more solid. Outside the chamber, the Crithari city began to stir. Inside, a human and an alien commander sat awake together, no longer as judge and subject, but as two beings who had chosen, for one long night, to face truth without armor. And that choice, Eli knew, was already changing more than either of them could fully see. The light of dawn spread slowly across the chamber, not as a sudden brightness but as a steady revealing. Valethera's sun rose like a careful thought, warming stone and metal at the same time. The raised platform remained firm beneath Eli Mercer, though his body had begun to protest in small, sharp ways. His legs were numb. His shoulders ached. His eyes felt dry. He stayed still. Commander Siren noticed everything. She always did. You have reached the edge of your endurance, she said. Yes, Eli replied honestly. You have not crossed it. Not yet. That earned a quiet pause. Among the Crithari, the moment before collapse was sacred. It was when truth slipped free of control. Many failed there. Eli did not. The light brightened another shade. "This is the hour," Siren said, "when most reveal who they are." Eli did not respond right away. He took one slow breath and let it out. "Then I hope I have been clear," he said. "You have," she replied, "too clear for some." She shifted her position, sitting taller now, her posture returning to that of command. The ritual was not yet over, but it had entered its final phase. Eli sensed it without being told. Something in the air felt expectant. "Stand," Siren said. Eli hesitated only long enough to make sure his legs would hold him. He rose carefully, blood rushing painfully back into his feet. He steadied himself without reaching for support. The platform was not meant to help those who relied on it. Siren stood as well. She faced him fully now. "You are permitted to move," she said, "but you may not leave." "I understand," Eli said. They stood in silence, facing one another, the space between them deliberate and measured. For the first time since entering the chamber, Eli could stretch his fingers, roll his shoulders slightly. The relief was immediate, but he did not let it show too much. "This moment," Siren said, "is where many attempt persuasion." "I won't," Eli replied. "Why?" "Because this isn't about winning," he said. "It's about being understood." Her eyes searched his face, looking for cracks, for ambition masked as humility. She found none. "Then speak," she said. "Tell me what you want." Eli took another breath. "I want my people to be known for who they are now," he said, "not only for who they were." Siren considered this. "Your history follows you," she said. "Yes," Eli agreed, "but it doesn't own us." She walked a slow circle around him, each step deliberate. Crethari movement was purposeful by nature. She stopped behind him, then moved back to his front. "You place much faith in change," she said. "We've had to," Eli replied. "The alternative was extinction." That word carried weight. Siren's gaze sharpened. "You have faced it." "Yes," Eli said quietly, "more than once." The silence that followed was deep, not tense but heavy with meaning. Siren broke it with a question that surprised him. "Do you believe my people are wrong?" Eli chose his answer carefully. "No," he said. "I believe you survived the way you had to, just as we did." "And if survival demands cruelty?" she asked. "Then survival has a cost," Eli said. "The question is whether that cost keeps increasing." Siren stopped moving. "You speak as if strength can be reshaped," she said. "I believe it can," Eli replied. "We've done it." She studied him for a long time, longer than before. The dawn light reflected off her eyes, making them seem almost luminous. "You do not seek to impress," she said at last. "That is rare." "I wouldn't know how," Eli said simply. That finally made her laugh. It was not loud, it was not uncontrolled, but it was real. The sound echoed softly in the chamber, touching the walls and returning changed. Eli felt something inside him loosen just a little. "The ritual is complete," Siren said. Eli felt a wave of relief wash through him, though he kept his posture steady. "You have endured," she continued. "You have spoken truth without defense. You have not sought dominance, nor have you shown fear." She stepped closer, close enough now that Eli could feel the heat of her presence clearly. "In my culture," she said, "this earns a name." Eli met her gaze. "What name?" "Unbroken." The word settled between them like a solid thing. Eli did not smile, he did not bow. He accepted it with a simple nod. "Thank you," he said. Siren turned away and moved toward the wall. With a subtle gesture, the chamber door opened. Light from the outside corridor spilled in, brighter and cooler than before. "You will rest now," she said. "Then you will face the council." Eli blinked. "The council? They will want to see you," she replied, "and to understand what this means." Eli understood enough to know it was significant. Crethari did not grant titles lightly. They did not invite outsiders into their inner structures without reason. As he gathered his outer garments, Siren watched him with an expression he could not fully read. "Commander," Eli said, hesitating slightly. "May I ask one thing?" She inclined her head. "You may." "Why me?" he asked. "Of all humans." Siren considered the question. Because you listened before speaking, she said, and because you did not try to make yourself larger than you are. Eli absorbed that quietly. The corridors outside were alive now. Crithari moved with purpose, their city awakening fully. Eli was escorted to a resting chamber, simpler even than the ritual space. As soon as the door closed behind him, his body finally allowed itself to sag. He sat on the low bench provided and let out a long breath he felt he had been holding for hours. Somewhere far above, human observers received confirmation that the ritual had ended successfully. No alarms, no emergency signals. Just a single transmitted phrase carefully chosen, status stable, subject accepted. Eli slept then deeply and without dreams. When he woke several hours later, he felt clearer than expected. Tired, yes, but focused. He dressed and stepped out when summoned. The council chamber was vast and open, shaped like a wide ring. Elder Crithari stood along its curve, their expressions unreadable. Siren stood at the center. Eli took his place opposite her. "This human," Siren said to the council, "has completed the trust rite." A low murmur moved through the chamber. "He did not break," she continued. "He did not deceive, he did not seek advantage." An elder stepped forward. "And what does this prove?" "That strength does not always announce itself," Siren replied. "And that humanity may be more than we assumed." The elder's gaze shifted to Eli. "Do you claim equality?" Eli answered calmly. "No, I claim willingness." That caused another murmur, different this time. The elder studied him. "Willingness to what?" "To listen," Eli said. "And to learn." The silence that followed felt thoughtful. Siren spoke again. "If humans can endure truth without armor, then they may be capable of standing with us, not beneath, not above." The council did not decide immediately. Crithari decisions were never rushed. But something had changed. Eli could feel it in the room, in the way eyes lingered on him, not as prey, not as curiosity, but as something new. When the session ended, Siren approached him once more. "You have altered expectations," she said quietly. "So have you," Eli replied. She nodded. "This path will not be easy." "None worth walking ever are," Eli said. As he left the chamber, Eli understood something clearly for the first time. Humanity had not proven its strength through force or fear. It had done so by staying awake, speaking truth, and refusing to break, even when every instinct said rest would be easier. And that, he knew, was only the beginning. The news did not spread loudly at first. Among the Crithari, important things rarely did. There were no public announcements, no dramatic displays. Instead, whispers moved through corridors of stone and light. Glances lingered longer. Conversations paused when Eli Mercer passed by. Something had changed. Eli felt it even before he understood it. In the days following the council meeting, he was invited to observe, not to speak. That alone was unusual. Crithari culture did not include outsiders in its inner workings unless there was purpose behind it. Eli walked beside Siren through training halls, planning chambers, and places where decisions shaped entire regions of the planet. He did not interrupt. He did not offer advice unless asked. That restraint earned him more attention than any bold statement could have. The first challenge came quietly. During a strategic gathering, a senior Crithari commander questioned Siren's judgment openly. His tone was controlled, but the meaning was sharp. He suggested that granting trust to a human so quickly showed weakness. That Crithari strength had always been proven through dominance, not endurance. The room went still. Siren did not respond immediately. She looked instead at Eli. "Tell them," she said. Eli felt every eye turn toward him. This was not part of any plan he knew. The instinct to step back rose strong and fast. He pushed it aside. "I don't believe strength disappears when it's shared," Eli said calmly. "I believe it becomes harder to misuse." The commander studied him. "You speak boldly for one without power." Eli nodded. "That's why my words matter more than force." A ripple of reaction moved through the room. Some Crithari bristled. Others leaned forward slightly, curious despite themselves. The commander gave a low sound of displeasure but said no more. Afterward, Siren walked beside Eli in silence. "You challenged him," she said at last. "No," Eli replied. "I answered." She considered that. "There is a difference." The shift did not go unnoticed by outsiders. Other species within the wider galactic network had long viewed the Crithari with caution. Their reputation as unyielding predators made them powerful allies but dangerous enemies. The sudden inclusion of a human diplomat in their inner circles caused confusion and concern. Messages began arriving. Some were polite, some were suspicious. A few were openly hostile. Why had the Crithari accepted humanity so quickly? What had the human offered? What was being exchanged? Human leadership, watching from afar, struggled to keep up. Eli's reports were careful and measured, emphasizing cultural exchange and mutual respect. But many still expected some hidden bargain. That was how power usually worked. On Vaelthera, the pressure increased. One evening, as Eli and Siren stood overlooking the city's wide terraces, she spoke quietly. "They will test us," she said. "Us?" Eli asked. "You are included now," she replied. He absorbed that in silence. The test came sooner than expected. A neighboring species, long at odds with the Crithari, issued a formal challenge. Not of war, but of comparison. They demanded a joint forum where both cultures would present their strengths before neutral observers. It was meant to expose weakness, to force the Crithari to defend their decision publicly. The council debated for a full cycle. In the end, Siren made the proposal that tipped the balance. "The human will speak," she said. Eli learned of it afterward. "You want me to represent you?" he asked. "I want you to represent yourself," Siren replied. "That will be enough." The forum took place in a vast neutral station suspended between systems. Delegates from dozens of species attended, each watching closely. This was not a place for speeches filled with pride. It was a place where reputation could shift with a single misstep. Eli stood alone at the center platform. He wore no symbols of rank, no weapons, just the same simple uniform he had worn on Vaelthera. When it was his turn to speak, the chamber was quiet. "I am not here to prove that humans are superior," Eli began. "We are not." That alone caused a stir. "I am here to say that we survive," he continued. "Not because we dominate others, but because we adapt, cooperate, and learn from failure." A representative from the challenging species interrupted. "Words are easy. Strength is action." Eli nodded. "I agree." He spoke then of human history. Not as a triumph, but as a record of learning, of mistakes made and corrected, of systems changed when they no longer served life. He spoke of choosing restraint when force was possible, and of rebuilding after loss instead of seeking endless revenge. He did not ask for trust. He explained why humans valued it. When he finished, there was no applause, no immediate response, just silence. Then Siren stepped forward. "The human endured our deepest trial," she said, "without armor, without deception. If such a species stands beside us, it is not weakness, it is evolution." That word echoed through the chamber. The challenge dissolved without formal concession, but the effect was clear. The observers had seen something new. Not an alliance built on fear, but one grounded in shared endurance. Back on Vaelthera, reactions were mixed. Some Crithari welcomed the change. Others resisted quietly, clinging to older definitions of strength. Eli felt the tension growing beneath the surface. Change was never smooth, especially for a culture that had survived by staying the same for so long. One night, Siren found Eli standing alone on a high terrace. "You carry the weight well," she said. "I don't feel like I'm carrying it," Eli replied. "More like I'm walking through it," she nodded. "That may be worse." They stood together in silence, watching the city lights pulse gently below. "Do you regret it?" she asked. "Coming here?" Eli thought carefully. "No," he said, "but I understand now why it was necessary." She looked at him. "Explain." Because if we don't show another way, Eli said, we'll keep repeating the same ones. Siren considered this. You have changed how my people see yours, she said, and how some see themselves. That can be dangerous, Eli replied. Yes, she agreed, but stagnation is more so. The following days brought more discussions, more careful steps forward. Joint research teams were proposed, cultural exchanges planned, small things but meaningful. Eli noticed how often Crithari began to pause before acting, how questions were asked instead of assumptions made. Not everywhere, not by everyone, but enough to matter. Humanity's position in the galaxy shifted quietly but firmly. They were no longer seen as fragile newcomers. They were seen as a species that could face truth without breaking, and that reputation traveled faster than any fleet. As Eli prepared reports for Earth, he realized something profound. Humanity had not earned respect by showing power. They had earned it by showing restraint, honesty, and the courage to endure discomfort for something greater than themselves. And in a galaxy shaped by fear and force, that made them quietly revolutionary. The path ahead was uncertain. Resistance would come. Mistakes would be made. But for the first time, humanity was not simply entering the galactic stage. It was helping redefine it. The time for departure came quietly. Eli Mercer stood on the same landing platform where he had first arrived on Vaelthura. The pale clouds still drifted slowly above, unchanged, as if the planet itself measured time differently from those who walked upon it. The shuttle waited with its engines warm, ready to lift him back toward orbit and then home. Yet Eli did not feel like the same person who had stepped down here days ago. Siren stood a short distance away, her posture formal but not distant. Around them, a small group of Crithari officials observed in silence. There was no ceremony planned, no grand farewell. That alone spoke volumes. You will return to your people, Siren said. Yes, Eli replied, and you will remain with yours. That is the way of things, she said. They stood in silence for a moment, the air filled with sounds of the city below. Life continuing, steady and indifferent to personal milestones. You have given us much to consider, Siren said at last. I didn't intend to give, Eli replied. Only to share, she nodded. The result is the same. She stepped closer, lowering her voice slightly. The council has agreed to formal ties, slow ones, careful ones, but real. Eli felt a quiet satisfaction settle in his chest, not pride, relief. That's more than enough, he said. Siren studied him, her eyes thoughtful. There is something else. Eli waited. In my culture, she said, we do not repeat the trust rite lightly. It is not meant to become habit. I understand, Eli said. But, she continued, there are moments when trust is renewed, not demanded. She paused, then spoke the words that had once shaken an entire hall. You may share my bed again, human. Eli did not tense this time. He did not search for hidden meaning. He understood now. He smiled, small and genuine. In my culture, he said gently, we ask. Siren held his gaze for a long moment. Then she inclined her head. Then, she said, I ask. The moment passed without spectacle, but its weight lingered. Eli boarded the shuttle soon after. As the doors closed and the craft lifted into the sky, he looked down at Vaelthura growing smaller beneath him, not as a conquered world, not as a mystery solved, but as a place where understanding had begun. In orbit, human officials waited with questions ready. Reports were transmitted, data analyzed. Political reactions formed quickly, but something deeper moved more slowly. Across the galaxy, stories spread. Not exaggerated tales of conquest or dominance, but accounts of a human who had sat awake through a long alien night, speaking truth without armor. Of a predator species that had paused, listened, and chosen evolution over certainty. Some dismissed it as symbolism. Others understood what it meant. On Earth, debates followed. Some praised the outcome. Others worried humanity had exposed itself, shown too much vulnerability. Eli listened to them all with the same patience he had shown on Vaelthura. Change, he knew, was rarely comfortable. Weeks passed, then months. Joint projects began quietly. Scientific exchanges, cultural studies, no massive fleets, no dramatic treaties signed in front of cameras, just steady work done by people willing to sit with discomfort long enough to learn from it. The Crithari did not become softer. Humans did not become stronger in the way many expected. Instead, both became more precise. One evening, long after Eli had returned home, a message arrived. It was short, carefully phrased, an invitation. Eli stood by the window of his apartment, Earth's familiar sky stretched above him, and read it twice. He did not hesitate. When he returned to Vaelthera, the city felt different. Not changed completely, but adjusted, like a stance corrected after long strain. Crithari moved with the same purpose, the same discipline, but there was a new pattern beneath it. Questions asked where commands once ruled. Pauses where once there had been only action. Siren met him not as a commander receiving a diplomat, but as a leader greeting a known ally. This time, the ritual chamber felt less imposing. The bed platform remained unchanged, but its meaning had shifted. It was no longer a test. They did not speak much that night. They did not need to. The trust was already there. When dawn came, it did not mark survival. It marked continuation. In the cycles that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy grew clearer. They were not feared as conquerors. They were not dismissed as weak. They were known as the ones who endured. When conflicts arose between other species, humans were invited not because they could threaten, but because they could listen. Because they could sit through long nights of tension without demanding immediate victory. Some called it strange, some called it foolish, but it worked. Eli often thought back to the first moment Siren had spoken those words in the reception hall, how easily everything could have gone wrong, how fragile first impressions truly were. Humanity had not won respect by shouting its strength. It had earned it by staying present when it would have been easier to retreat, by accepting discomfort instead of forcing control, by understanding that survival was not just about standing tall, but about knowing when to sit still. Years later, when historians would write of humanity's rise among the stars, they would struggle to pinpoint the exact moment everything changed. There was no battle to mark it, no treaty that clearly defined it, just a long night on an alien world, a shared space, and a choice not to break. And that, more than any weapon or fleet, became humanity's true legacy among the stars.